To understand that, we'll have to understand the very concept of aid. You see, international aid is not a lump sum amount. It's a bundle of a wide range of things. Some of it is money, some of it is food, some of it is debt relief, and some of it is people. That's the cost of consultants and staff who provide technical assistance. And as important as these expenditures may be, they don't result in the transfer of resources. Take the case of Timor-Leste. It's a country in Southeast Asia. It became independent in the year 1999. Since then, it has received over $5 billion in aid. Out of this, $2 billion has been spent on the UN mission alone. Bilateral donor projects have cost around $1.7 billion. UN staff get salaries 10 times more than locals here. For instance, a UN employee from Australia is paid $200,000, and this is in a country where 50% of the population makes less than $2 a day. Do you get the point? International aid is not entirely what it seems. Only a trickle of what's promised gets transferred as aid. Some of it is exhausted by the agencies providing aid. Some of it reaches the recipient countries but immediately bounces back to the donors, to the pockets of the very people who promised aid. How does that happen? Thanks to a concept called tied aid. Let me explain. What they do is tie the loans to companies within donor countries. So if America is the donor, for instance, the loans are tied to American companies. And the result is this. These companies then decide how the money is spent. I'll show you more numbers. In 2012, more than 14% of bilateral aid was tied. In 2017, it was more than 15%. In 2018, it grew to over 19%. Which are the donors that tie aid? Almost all of them. The US tops the list. In 2018, almost 40% of bilateral aid was tied. That's approximately $11 billion. Japan tied over 22% of $4.2 billion. Germany tied almost 15% or $3.1 billion. And South Korea tied more than 48% of its aid. Basically, all these countries promised aid, but instead of giving it to recipient countries, they gave the money to their own companies. So the aid money is, first of all, furthering their own economic interests. A few years back, this report was released. It said Britain's foreign aid budget had created a group of poverty barons, private players who were filling their pockets in the name of helping disadvantaged people. In fact, the department which was given the task was itself found to be splurging aid money, the Department of International Development, DFID. This was a British government agency for foreign aid. In 2012, an investigation revealed that this agency had spent 20 million euros on five-star hotels, 6 million euros on a university studying mental health, 3.9 million euros on a think tank studying elections in Africa, and 400,000 euros on furniture at its new branch in India. What about aid for development? Only a fragment of that money went to African nations. And why just Britain? Almost every developed nation has such stories. Only a small part of the aid they promise is spent on welfare or development. Most of it is spent on setting up offices and brainstorming on how to offer help. The rest goes to developing nations as grants or concessional loans. Sometimes it is provided in the form of debt relief, which basically leaves the money in the hands of leaders and not people.